Jay Versace made a tweet saying that he thinks that people who are extremely African looking are the ones who get picked for a lot of modeling jobs. Now, I kind of agree to an extent, but can we just talk about how African Americans and Africans don't even look that different? A lot of African Americans look extremely African. Alondria from Love Island, for example. Everyone was saying how they thought that she was Nigerian. Viola Davis, Wesley Snipes, and even Jay Versace himself, to me, looks very African. My point is that we are not a monolith and we look more alike than we look different.
I never knew there was a love like this before. Never had someone to show me a love like this before. I never knew there was a love like this before. Never had someone to show me a love like this before. I never knew there was a love like this before. Never had someone to show me a love like this before. I never knew there was.
Fashion occupies a unique place in the zeitgeist. It is able to shift mindsets, create new norms, and include or exclude whole groups of people from its vision of beauty. Isn't it kind of ironic that Jay Versace essentially ghosted the internet to focus on music production, only to reemerge with a critique of the modeling industry? For those who may not be aware, Jay Versace recently tweeted that the modeling world often doesn't offer opportunities unless you have a particular African look. This critique immediately brings to the forefront the insidious forces of anti-Blackness and Negrophobia that have long shaped global beauty standards. Anti-Blackness, broadly defined as the systemic discrimination and prejudice against Black people, regardless of their origin, manifest in various ways, from overt racism to subtle exclusions. Negrophobia, often understood as a deep-seated fear, aversion, or hatred of Black people, frequently intertwines with this, leading to the dehumanization, fetishization, or exoticization of Black bodies. Understanding these foundational concepts is crucial to grasping the complex dynamics at play in the fashion industry. As Kalita Nichols Fairfax profoundly articulates, there is a need to extend the analysis of resilience of Africans and their descendants and the complexities of centuries of systemic assaults upon the psyche, cultural integrity, family structure, spiritual, metaphysical, conceptual systems, and organizational roles and institutions. The human chattel enslavement process denied Africans to exist as humans and cultural beings. The daily systemic and violent assaults upon the psyche, cultural integrity, family structure, spiritual, metaphysical, conceptual systems, organizational roles, and institutions on kidnapped Africans require more analysis with recommended best community practices. Given the complexity of human survival issues facing the African American community or Black American community, however you want to identify, it's a nuanced analysis of trauma and best practices are required. This powerful statement underscores the deep historical wounds that continue to impact Black communities globally, providing vital context for understanding Black fatigue and the persistent struggle against dehumanization in spaces like the fashion industry. Now, this isn't exactly new information. Many people have already acknowledged the increasing visibility of models from the African continent, especially those who are tall, slender, and dark-skinned. On the surface, this might look like a win for representation, but if you study the history of fashion and modeling, you'll know it's more complicated than that. Many African models have historically been treated more like exotic objects or spectacles than respected professionals. This isn't a new phenomenon. It echoes a darker chapter in history. Consider the tragic story of Sarah Baartman, the so-called Hottentot Venus, whose body was exhibited in Europe during the 19th century. Her story is the foundational part of the long narrative of scientific racism, where African features were fetishized, pathologized, and exploited for entertainment and quote-unquote research. Her appeal was rooted in Eurocentric or Western ideas of what primitive beauty looks like, an aesthetic that's romanticized but still deeply dehumanizing. The echoes of this objectification, driven by Negrophobia, can still be seen in the way certain quote-unquote African features are commodified today.
The girls that are really just being featured in everything, they really have unique features for African Americans. You know, the very skinny nose, the very elegant faces. They really look like white girls that were painted black. that's beauty, to the industry's perspective, to agents' perspective. When they see that, when they see a girl that can look different, by skin pigment and still have great features like that, it is sellable. When you come in with big eyes, big nose, big this, whatever, big lips, things that are common traits in African Americans, it doesn't work.
Furthermore, for a long time, African fashion itself has been misconstrued as tribal or exotic and simplified to leopard skins and mud cloths. While African aesthetics are often a point of reference in global fashion, the original source is rarely regarded as much as the derivative. This is particularly egregious given that Africa is a vast continent, and the immense variation of its fashion stories is profoundly influenced by a myriad of diverse societies and the status of individuals or groups within those communities. Ironically, to me, Versace actually possesses some of the very features in the industry that the industry often praises. He's tall and thin, both runway standards. So it really makes me wonder, is this critique rooted in a broader frustration with the industry's beauty standards, or is it also personal? Perhaps disappointment in not benefiting from the privileges that others with similar features might be afforded. Given that Versace identifies as queer, his critique also gains another layer of significance. As Carl Gerard reminds us, Black queers have always been the architects of progress and the beacon of self-expression and creativity. This positions Jay's frustration not merely as an individual grievance, but as part of a deeper lineage of Black queer individuals pushing against restrictive norms and demanding more inclusive spaces. It reminds me of the sociological concept of the glass escalator, where men in female-dominated professions often find themselves kicked upstairs into higher paying or more powerful roles, seemingly propelled by unspoken advantages. One has to ask, if for Black American models, this escalator is simply non-existent, or if they encounter a distinct racially charged glass ceiling propelled by anti-Blackness, even when they possess features that supposedly fit the industry's ideal. If that is the case, it opens up another important discussion. Who gets deemed marketable and why, even when they seemingly fit the mold? It's crucial to acknowledge here that many African American women, as early research by Thomas and later echoed by Odoms Young, have demonstrated a complex relationship with mainstream beauty standards. Their satisfaction with body image is influenced by community reactions and cultural ideals, suggesting that they may not internalize mainstream American society's narrow definition of beauty and are thus less likely to tie their self-worth directly to specific physical appearance metrics dictated by the fashion world. Added to the complexity, we can't ignore the racism deeply embedded in the industry, which is the direct manifestation of anti-Blackness. Black Americans have long spoken out against discrimination in fashion and beauty, yet are often overlooked by agencies. Consider these points. While there have been some gains, Black models still face significant hurdles. For instance, Black models typically make up around 6% of models on runways during Fashion Month, a figure that often mirrors their presence in advertisements and editorials and popular fashion magazines. This statistic persists despite the global expansion of the fashion market. While Black models saw more opportunities in the 1970s and 80s, the late 90s saw a noticeable shift where top designers favored an aesthetic that largely excluded models of color, with Black models bearing the brunt of this change. Some agencies might find it easier or more profitable to scale African models, especially those with what are considered less diluted features. These individuals are then branded as exotic, which can be seen as either a compliment or a form of othering rooted in negrophobic tendencies. This can lead to vulnerable models from impoverished backgrounds being exploited, as they may lack the resources, support systems, or legal protections to negotiate fair terms or challenge abuses. Furthermore, it's vital to challenge the notion that race mixing or admixture is the sole determinant of beauty, as this perspective can foster self-hate within our communities. We must acknowledge that our environment and diverse ancestries can profoundly shape how we evolve and present as individuals, leading to a wide spectrum of Black beauty that extends far beyond narrow colonial influence ideals of quote-unquote less diluted features. This issue extends beyond race to colorism, where lighter skinned models are often favored over dark skinned models within the Black community. Research shows that while some dark skinned models like Lupita Nyong'o have achieved prominence, they remain outliers, and many darker skinned models are told they fulfill the quota for representation. A 2019 analysis of Vogue covers, for example, found that the majority of Black women featured were lighter skinned, and a significant portion of the darkest skinned appearances were attributed to a single person. Interestingly, preferences for lighter skinned women have been observed independently in Asia and Europe, potentially predating colonialism as Western influence. This complex interplay of historical, cultural, and perhaps even evolutionary factors complicates the narrative around colorism, underscoring that white colonial legacies have undeniably amplified these biases. Inherent preferences within diverse groups also play a role. Of course, these are just my observations and not meant to generalize or create division. So now I'm going to play some public opinion and then I'm going to conclude.
Let's go over this tweet. Why do it seem like you gotta look extremely African in order to be a successful Black model? I don't like that. So people are mad at Jay Versace for saying this, and I'm going to really explain what I think he's trying to say. First thing first, Black Americans do have the tendency to group all African people. What he really saying is they all look East African, Sudanese specifically. There isn't much West African feature-wise representation in the modeling industry, as well as Black American, but I feel like Black Americans and West Africans have a more similar look. This is what the Black representation for high fashion modeling looks like. Sudanese women have that smooth skin, the cheekbones, like this kind of pouty face. Like, this is what they look for, and very deep, dark skin. Like, look at the, you know what I mean? I don't blame them. The face is tea. The look is tea. This is the type of face we're not seeing. Like, you're not seeing a Tony Child's face. Now, this face is just as tea, but we're not seeing this on the high fashion runways. I'm just showing y'all women who will look beautiful, who are Black American, but you know, it's more of a West African look, in my opinion. We look more West African than we do East African on a normal basis. Like, we're missing these type of faces. This is what the high fashion industry looks for. These very deep, dark tones, very clearly kind of exotic, almost used as props. Like, you know, I've seen a lot of African South Sudanese women, they use them kind of proppy because of their skin, because of their elongated beautiful bodies, you know. And actually I'm surprised they're wearing wigs, because also another thing is they love for them to have shaved heads for whatever reason. Just to bring it back around, once again, a more West African look, right? This is Tim. She's obviously like Nigerian. We just don't see this on the runway. All in all, as Black Americans, we also want to see representation for people that we look like and see every day, right? I mean, obviously they're models, so they're not going to look like everybody, everyday people. And as Black Americans, we are just losing representation in a lot of areas. I think Black models are either biracial, right? Or they look super dark and slender, and they have that same East African look. And that's just what it is.
Black Americans think that they are better than African people, and this is essentially my understanding from the thousands of comments that they have sent, because they didn't like the fact that I, an African, call them colonizers. But
y'all ain't got no energy for this, right? I'm sorry, I just had to put in that second clip because y'all know I'm hella petty. So in that first clip I showed you, you see how the girl was screaming that Black Americans, we think we're better than them, and that we're basically colonizers. And it's just funny because, to me, like I said, it's pure jealousy, because this is the thing, right? There's only one group of people, really Europeans, that you can blame for the reason of the state of the places that y'all are from. And this is where the misplaced anger comes from, because it's obviously true that y'all must be some type of scared of white people, because y'all be having all this energy for Black Americans, but Black Americans did nothing to you. It's not our fault that somebody came to y'all's land and completely took all your resources and fucked all your shit up. And as we see, as of today, y'all do nothing. All y'all do is get online and get mad at Black Americans that did nothing to you. The only person y'all have to blame is yourself. And that's why y'all are mad. Because the only person y'all have to blame is yourself. Because your leaders sold y'all out so they can make some money while y'all suffered. Maybe if back in the 15 and 1600s, if y'all weren't so fucking friendly and wasn't just letting people with a smile come up in there and take all your shit, you wouldn't be in the place that you're in today with your friendly ass. If y'all friendly asses actually had a backbone, you wouldn't have to get up from where y'all love so much to go live in a whole nother country. And quiet as it's kept, I see the country y'all choose to pick the most is America. Because y'all know out of any Western world, America's going to be the one that's going to treat its immigrants the best. Because y'all know if y'all go to the UK, shit, right now they're trying to send their migrants to Rwanda, a country that's in war with another fucking country. It's time just for everybody to put their big boy pants on and say what the real issue is. You're mad that Black Americans are the only group of people who do not have to get up from where they're from, including Caribbeans, because like I always say about the Caribbean, y'all's people gave y'all a black country and y'all still are running from it. We're the only group of people who don't have to go nowhere to go create a better life. We're the only group of people who do not have to move to a strange ass place, live in a 1-bedroom apartment with 20 different people just to try to make a fucking living. And then to have folks back home begging for money. And like I said, it's all this energy for Black Americans, but y'all never say nothing to y'all actual colonizers.
Black people and Africans don't even look the same. I mean, look at Black Americans and then look at people from West Africa. You can clearly see that we're different. We don't look the same. So I can understand why Black people have no need to connect to Africa. This is totally false. So many of us have a very generalized view of looking at African culture. This is why we say things like Africans sold other Africans. Because what we do not acknowledge the various cultures that existed for hundreds, thousands of years on the continent of Africa, but we show that same degree of respect to cultures in Western Europe. So we'll be quick to discern between a Viking or Visigoth and a Roman, or a person on the British Isles and the people of Gaul, or the Vandals of the ancient Iberian Peninsula, or the Greeks, etc. Although phenotypically you could just say they look the same if you want to buy into the concept of race, but we acknowledge the difference in culture. But it seems like we don't extend that to West Africa. Like we wouldn't be willing to look at a person that's Mende and discern between them and a Wolof. We won't look at a person that is Fonte and discern between them and somebody that's Igbo. We won't look at somebody that's Hausa and discern between them and maybe a hunter-gatherer like, the Hadza people. We're just looking at it black and phenotype. And even with phenotype, we get it wrong. Because if you look at people like the Nuer of Sudan, their phenotype is definitely different from the people of Aswan in Egypt, versus the people in Uganda, versus a lot of the groups in Uganda, excuse me. So there's a lot of difference in phenotype. Africa has a polytypic phenotype, just like many Black Americans are going to look vastly different from one another. So it's something that we have to question, because I think when we say Black people don't look like Africans, we kind of buy into a racist narrative of just there's a generic African phenotype when there isn't one. It doesn't exist. Prior to colonialism, any of these events, there was a myriad of phenotypes on the continent. So it's hard to say when you say Black people don't look like Africans, like, what do you mean by that? And also it can open the door for a lot of crazy, wonky theories like people are Israelites or indigenous, but that's a whole different conversation. So Africans have a polytypic phenotype. Black people have a polytypic phenotype. We're not a monolith. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Peace.
Somebody on Twitter said, please stop saying that Black Americans and Africans look alike. These mofos got bull and ball heads. And the quotes are absolutely hilarious. It's just proven that Black Americans and Africans do look alike. This says this is a Zimbabwean man. And someone put a picture of Meek Mill with an African man and said these are Igbo brothers. And then T.I. that says, this is an Igbo man with 2 shops. And then someone said of JT, this is a Congolese woman. And oh my god. And someone quoted that tweet saying, show me an actual picture of a Congolese woman. This is a Congolese woman. And then they quoted a picture of that woman with Kiki Palmer. And then someone showed a picture of Michael Jordan and said this is a South Sudanese man. I'm cracking up. And then this picture of Chloe and Halle. This is the South Africanosa family. And someone said this is P Square's triplet. And I'm cracking up, y'all. This is a Nigerian man. Exactly. But anyways, is it just me or am I seeing black British people, black Americans, and black Africans just constantly arguing nowadays? Like, why, y'all? But this person really thought that they ate. Also, I'm sorry if I pronounced any of the countries wrong.
I understand what you're saying because you can definitely spot out a Yoruba babe versus a Xhosa or a Zulu babe or an Ethiopian. Like every ethnic group or tribe or whatever has distinct features. However, I want to say to think that Black Americans look totally different than continental West Africans or Central Africans, which are the primary regions which we come from, can kind of be problematic because say for instance my Gullah family, you can't really spot the difference other than if they open their mouths or their clothes, just by looking at someone's face you're not gonna know. And I have had people comment under my pictures, especially the FBA people, no, you look like you're from Ghana, you're not a Black American, because this can be very problematic because then it gets to hair texturism, colorism, and body phenotype. Yeah. This is someone from Angola, and this is me. We look like we can be cousins. What the fuck?
Can we just talk about how African Americans and Africans don't even look that different?
I used to wonder what was this obsession with all of these Africans from different countries saying that Black Americans look African all the time. And I always wondered why they get so offended when we say we can tell that there are, people from that continent, from Africa. We can tell. And then they go, what country? And they get really butthurt. But when you guys say that we look Black American, we don't say, well, what state? Because essentially our states here are the equivalent of some of your countries, the sizing, the type of people that live there. You can usually tell a Southern person from a Northern person and definitely a Midwest or a Western person. Obviously a lot of people have migrated across, the country, but for a lot of the times you can kind of tell. I had no idea until I did some further research that the reason why you guys get so mad when we say that you look African, well, let me let an African tell you.
You look African. It's such a simple and succinct statement. And for Africans in the diaspora, it's a very sensitive one at the same time. I know maybe not for everybody or maybe just for me, but because subconsciously Africans associate looking African with the struggle, a bit of the past. So we rather someone discover that we are African than, just know, because then you just see the African. We know the African look is a strong look, subconsciously, of course, because that's what we've seen is this look of victory, roots, give us free. So we associate that. So when someone else says oh my God, you look African, it's hey, why? Can you see? Can you see my past? Can you see the struggles? It's brother, why do I look African? What about me showed you African? You look African is very different. But go up to an African today and tell them, just from jump, hey, you look African, and see their reaction. The first look is concerned, then it's oh yeah.
But can we just talk about how African Americans and Africans don't even look that different?
I am convinced that a lot of West Africans do not have a good idea of what they actually look like. Because as a Black American, I can tell from a mile away whether you're Black American or whether you're African. And it has nothing to do with your facial features. It has nothing to do with your skin tone. It has nothing to do with your hair texture. I can tell by looking in your eyes whether you are African or Black American. Black Americans are 400 years removed from Africa. Majority of Africans have 90 to 100% African DNA. Majority of Black Americans have about 20% European DNA. So you're not going to sit up here and tell me that I look like someone who has 90 to 100% African in them when I'm 1/3 white. And I think the big issue here is I feel like a lot of African people feel as if a Black American person is saying, oh, we don't look like you, then we're calling you ugly. No, that's not the case. We just don't look like you. Any Black American would be able to look at you and say, oh yeah, you're African, or hey, you're Jamaican, or hey, you're a Black American. because we as a community have built such a tight-knit community that we know who our people are. We know our kinfolk. And us saying that we do not look like you and that we can tell the difference it's not throwing shade at you at all. It's not saying, oh, you're less attractive or that we're better than you. It's not saying that at all. I've had so many Africans say, oh, you look like you're from South Africa. You look Egyptian. You look like you're from East Africa. You look like everything except for the fact that my ancestry is West African. Honey, no. The features that you see that don't look 100% West African, it's just European DNA. And it's from slavery. And I wish a lot of African people would just stop trying to gaslight Black Americans and just respect the fact that we are a separate group of people with our own cultures, with our own identities, with our own separate looks.
What is going on with Africans between African Americans?
None of your business. In other words, black folk business is black folk business. To make it simpler, don't worry about the drama happening in a certain community that you're not a part of. We as black people, especially Afro-Americans, have been addressing the diaspora wars happening within our community, and that's for us to mitigate. And even if you're just genuinely curious, you asking that question is lighting a fire that we're already trying to extinguish. There are white tea people in the United Kingdom who don't care for white tea people in the United States. Inquire about that. There are people in France that don't like the way people in Canada speak French. Inquire about that. Across the world in different diasporas, there are many differences that groups have that stem from misunderstandings, but that's for those groups to figure out. And contrary to popular belief, there are a lot of Africans that don't have a problem with African Americans and vice versa, so don't generalize. And that's coming from an African American who's actually been to Africa, hence the shirt. So if it's not your community, don't worry about it.
I'm not gonna lie, so many of y'all be bullshitting when y'all say, oh, we can easily tell the difference between a Black American and African, because no, you can't. Y'all keep calling me Black American, even though I keep telling y'all I'm Sierra Leonean. I'm Sierra Leonean American. Do I gotta be like, cool shit, anybody, the body go, And now some of y'all about to go out your way to be like, nah, I could tell you're African. Yeah, I know. And Creole tribe, look, we were slaves that were in America that got sent to West Africa. And honestly, that shit is also starting to get rooted in white supremacy, bro. Because y'all will literally, like, start worshiping lighter skin when y'all say shit like this. And for the fellow dark-skinned brothers, bro, listen, some of y'all could keep lying to yourselves, but listen, we grew up, went to school and shit. A lot of y'all was getting called African and Haitian as, like, an insult and shit like that. I know you're gonna try to act like it didn't happen now and shit like that, but
I'm about to put this shit to bed because y'all are dragging it and it's pissing me off. If you say you can't tell the difference between East African and a Black American, or West African and a Black American, you're blind, stupid, or a liar. Or a combination of all fucking three. Are you serious? Are you... You really can't tell the difference between a nigga like me and an African. You can't tell between a nigga like me and an African. I need y'all to understand that y'all are like beyond biased and blind and like brainwashed, because like it's like you'll abandon history. You'll abandon history. Aren't Black Americans supposed to be mixed up with white, or mixed up with Native American, and mixed up with all this shit? Aren't we supposed to be the mutts? So how the fuck can you not tell the difference between a mutt and a like monoracial person who don't have no white or any other thing in their ancestry? You can't tell a 100% African from a 70% African. You can't tell a East African, like a Ethiopian, or somebody from fucking North Sudan or some shit, from somebody that look like me. You can't tell a fucking Igbo man from me, or a fucking... Are y'all dumb? Do y'all not understand? Like, y'all can't see the phenotypical difference between Black Americans and Africans? It's like saying, bro, like you can tell which black people come from the Western Hemisphere in the East. Like, I'd even go as far as to say, not only can I tell a Black American from an African, I could tell a fucking Caribbean from an African too. And it's a little bit harder because they're way darker down there. I could tell a Jamaican from an African. I could tell a Haitian from an African. Or a Belizean from an African. Or fucking Panamanian from an African. Y'all are basically saying all black people look the same. And as you know, all the people that came on to the New World in the slave trade, transatlantic slave trade, were all mixed up. So how can you not tell a mixed up person from a person who's pure African? Y'all think having a big nose means you're African, or being dark skinned, or being coarse hair means African, bro. I think you can't tell the difference between Black Americans and Africans is because they dress like us over here in America. Take the African women, take their wigs away, take away their bust down middle parts, take away their lash extensions, take away the makeup, take away all that, and you can't tell a West African woman from a Black American woman. West African, take away the lineups, take away the fade, take away... You can't tell an African man from a Black American man. Y'all are liars, bro. Y'all are liars, blind, dumb, biased by history, or whatever the fuck. Because you're so used to, like, westernized Africans and shit like that. I want you to take, like, since you can't tell the difference between African in America and a Black American, I want you to book you a flight, Pick a random country in West Africa. Take your ass a plane there, hop off, and look at everybody around. Go to the nearest town and look at everybody around that bitch. And I bet you'll be able to tell the difference between us and them real quick. And I'm not even being mean or negative or throwing shade, but it gets to a point to say you can't. That's like saying, Vietnamese people and Korean people look the same, or Philippine people and Vietnamese look the same, or Korean and Chinese look the same. They fucking don't. And if you can't tell the difference between a Japanese person and a Korean person or a Chinese person and what's called a person from Laos or a Lao person, that's your own stupidness for not being able to recognize the differences in phenotype and all that shit. But I'm so sick of I can't tell Africans from Black Americans. Have you seen an African and have you seen a Black American? Have you looked at both groups of people real hard? Just because you are dark skinned does not mean you look like an African. Just because you have a large nose or doesn't mean you look African. I am so certain in myself that 8 times out of 10, if not 9 times out of 10, I can tell the difference between a Black American and a fucking African because we both look fucking different. Like,
what's especially disturbing is how Jay Versace's tweet has reignited harmful conversations about colorism, futurism, and even full-blown diaspora wars. It's frustrating how quickly discussions shift from structural critique to personal attacks, reinforcing internalized biases we haven't collectively unlearned, and often serving to perpetuate anti-Blackness within our own communities. This serves to distract from the deeper issues of systemic racism and exploitation within the industry. In closing, I want to emphasize something important. There are plenty of Black presenting people all over the world, including Black Americans who naturally possess features often associated with West or Eastern Africa. And how we define those features is subjective, shaped by culture, geography, and history. What we need to remember is that we share more than we differ, from our genetic roots to our cultural survival. Colonialism, assimilation, and global capitalism have tried to divide us, but our conversation should aim to reflect nuance, solidarity, and healing, not further separation, especially in the face of persistent anti-Blackness. What are your thoughts? Let me know down below, and thank you so much for listening to Books and Looks TV. I'll see y'all next time.